Close, but no cigar for the Mountaineers. Arizona State ends up with the victory, pulling out a 25-23 win in Tempe. West Virginia put up a fight. They were competitive with the defending conference champions, who are now still in the race this year, despite a little bit of a dip from a year ago. They put up an effort that led them on a comeback attempt from 2 scores down, and it looked like maybe West Virginia was going to pull off the upset and keep their bowl eligibility hopes alive going into that final week against Texas Tech, a bye before that. But it was not to be, as Arizona State gets the win 25-23 again. They kick a late field goal, then an interception to hang on and derail an attempt with a couple minutes left for Scotty Fox on the offense to try to convert and try to earn what could have been a momentum-shifting, monumental, game-winning drive, only needing a field goal to win it. But again, that did not happen because of the pick. And block field goal was in there. West Virginia squandered some field goal attempts earlier in the game, turning the ball over on downs. Curtis Jones did pick up another goal line touchdown, but West Virginia left points on the board for sure. Yet, they almost beat the defending conference champions, and this team was unwatchable a month and a half ago, and now has played competitive ball for 4 straight weeks as the season closes. They will miss a bowl game, but 2-2 in their last 2. Their 2-game win streak, though, snapped thanks to the Sun Devils. WVU football postgame show here. If you haven't noticed, Mike Osti here, West Virginia Sports Now. My game recap is already on the site, as well as the game reaction that certainly tells the story of the fans offering a very mixed reaction. Many think this was another game squandered, and like TCU, yeah, it's nice. They put better football together in recent weeks, but they should have won this game, and maybe they should have won that TCU game, and should have played better at different points throughout the year, and should have maybe at minimum been in a bowl team this year, if not more, despite the injuries, and especially in this game, left points on the board. A lot of people talking about shying away from field goals, looking to score, and turning it over on down so close to the goal line, while others are focusing on what I said. This team has played competitive ball. They went from unwatchable to now being a competitive team within the conference, including being competitive against teams that are contenders within the conference, giving you a glimpse of what could be there in the future with Scotty Fox and others still having eligibility left, and who knows if he'll have the ball handed to him as the day one starter next year immediately, or he'll have to compete with somebody throughout the offseason. I imagine he'll have to compete, but nonetheless, there's reason for some optimism based on how they played recently, and they also have shown a lot of heart and playing tough for Rich Rod, certainly not giving up on the coaching staff. That's positive. The negative is, yeah, it's a game squandered in the overall season. Right now, 4-7, likely finishing 4-8, which is only one game better than Rich Rod's year one back in 2001 to open up his first tenure. And this year, way better than that one, but very, very bad still throughout the history of the program, and certainly for Rich Rod, one of his worst years of his career overall from WVU on through his career. There's been others, but this is one of those bad years that can't be good no matter how you slice it, no matter what excuse you want to offer. So I will give you a few of my thoughts here on this post-game show and then close up shop and get back to my coverage unless you join me here in the chat. So if anyone wants to join in the chat, talk along here, discuss, especially from what I'm seeing from fans, and I will also go to some of the social media reactions and some of my tweets. You can also tweet me, of course, at MikeOsti11 while I'm on air here and respond. And it does appear that a lot of the conversation is about missing field goal attempts, not missing them, but not even trying them. Arizona State missed one. They got one blocked. They didn't miss it either, I guess, but they had points that should have been on the board that were blocked off the board. So they missed out on their 3 points because of something West Virginia did. Whereas West Virginia missed out on their 3 points because of, well, they didn't even try for those field goals. They went for it, and ended up turning the ball over on downs, especially at the goal line. I actually don't have a problem with those calls. And I don't even want to make this an analytic versus eye test conversation because Rich Rod has made it very clear. He is an eye test guy. He is a gut feeling guy. He is not an analytic guy. There are members of his coaching staff that I know that maybe look at analytics more, but the decision's his. And he's made it clear he's an eye test, gut test guy. And it's all about his gut feeling. They sometimes work, they sometimes don't. He is not going to study numbers, does not want anyone in his ear talking about numbers in those decisions. You can like that. You cannot. He's the head coach. He's going to be the head coach next year for sure. They're not going to fire him after just this year one. And his contract has him for 4 more years. We'll see if he gets through that contract. They have to win, of course, to get there. But this is not even so much about whether I want to go analytics or not, because Rich Rod's just not going to go analytics. So here in reality of discussing West Virginia football, the head coach is a gut feeling guy. I don't think this is so much of a gut feeling versus analytic conversation, though, as I don't think it's fair to discuss shying away from those points because they lose by 2, because a field goal would have won the game just on total numbers of points on the board here at the end. Because early in the game, when they initially shied away from a field goal attempt and tried to go for it, many of these same people saying this now, I saw them on social media because a lot of this is off of social media reaction, were saying they like the gutsiness, they like the aggressiveness. You have to understand the totality of this season plays a role here as well. If this is a team that is fighting for a chance at the Big 12 title, and a win here can set you up to be in the conference championship game, and you have legit CFP aspirations, and then you're taking points off the board, and then you're kind of playing video game football, and then maybe you want to shy away from analytics, and sometimes analytics tells you to go for it, of course, but then you're providing a gut feeling situation, and you're squandering points, and then the gut feeling doesn't work. Okay, then I can get maybe more of this conversation now after the fact. But this season's going nowhere. Even with a win, yeah, maybe you stay bowl eligible, but you have to face the team that spent the most money in the conference, that's vying for the conference title at the end of the year. Maybe you can spoil Texas Tech's season. I'm not predicting that win, whether you lost or won this game. But a bowl game is not the same as looking for more. You can get aggressive. You can have some fun. You can try things out. You can throw darts. And namely, you can get aggressive when you're not a team that has any chance at a championship. If a bowl game is your ceiling, yes, you want to make a bowl game compared to not. Yes, you want money for the program. Yes, you want to carry that momentum and have extra practices. All of that would be a positive. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but at best, this team was 6-6 in a minor bowl game. Yeah, they get some practices, and who knows what kind of momentum you carry, because that's also dependent on how many players you bring back on the team, and you have to see how that goes in the offseason. But this season isn't one to remember no matter what. Okay, best case scenario this season is 2001 equivalent, and you have championship type seasons later on, and then you just remember this as a building block. Worst case scenario, this season just one of years that didn't make this second tenure worthwhile for you. But it's hard to imagine, looking at future schedules, that there won't be other years that are better than this one. At least this should be the worst of this second tenure, and it's not even going into anything deeper than the schedule gets easier in a couple years. They don't have a P4 not a conference play. They should have less injury. You imagine fewer injuries. You imagine, lesser instability and drama, and all of that is not going to be as high of a premium as it was this year, because a lot of this year has been horrendous luck, but also 80 new players, a lack of chemistry, having to try a lot out this year, and 5 quarterbacks, 5 running backs. The odds of all that occurring again next year is incredibly low. So with that being the case, I'm pretty confident 4+ wins next year, more than 4 next year. And obviously you want more than that, or it's not acceptable. You don't want to just have 5 from 4 and 6 from 4. You need to do more. the excuses of year one of you couldn't recruit all year and 2 portal windows and lost players and 80 new players and all the injuries. That's all not all going to work next year for Rich Rod. But I don't mind at all being uber aggressive in a year that's not really going anywhere against the defending conference champs and just trying to go for the damn thing. That's how you upset teams like that, is you get aggressive. If they would have scored those touchdowns, especially the one early in the game, if they would have scored those touchdowns, and they should have had 2 TDs in that first quarter, they end up at one point, they were down 7-3 and should have been up 14-7. But I like the aggressiveness then. I like the aggressiveness. He's not gonna get cutesy and get, scared and live in his fears to make a bowl game. To make a bowl game. Yeah, making a bowl game is nice. You want to make a bowl game, and it would have been nice for this year with everything they've dealt with. But it's not like he puttered away a Big 12 title off of those decisions. So I don't mind those decisions. Again, Mike Osta here. The Mountaineers lose 25-23 in Tempe. An effort at the end, a solid effort at the end. They keep playing their tails off for sure. That's something you got to hand it to these players. And they could have collapsed altogether during that 5-game losing streak there in conference play where they're getting blown out week after week. And 4 of those games were blowouts. But 2-2 in their last 4, a 2-game win streak, a win over a ranked opponent. They now have a couple conference wins. Yeah, they don't beat Arizona State. Yeah, they don't beat TCU. Yeah, they probably should have won those 2 games. Yes, they've been very injury riddled this year, but there's reason to take optimism into the end of this season, how they are getting better at the end, how they are playing for Rich Rod at the end, and how there's maybe some hope for next year being better with the level of play from Scotty Fox and others. I will get to Scotty Fox in a moment, though, because I've seen some regression from him, even though he's playing relatively well for a freshman. But there's some regression there. The mental mistakes are still there. Jimmy Clark, I would like to use Vaughn more. He has NFL body and hands. I like how they don't quit, though. Imagine if Jaheim and Bray stayed healthy. Rich is building that culture off season will be big. And yeah, Jimmy on X, 100% to most of that. 100% that they are showing they don't quit. 100% to that they're playing really hard for this coaching staff, and we're seeing coaches get fired for 1 or 2 years all across the country early in 10 years. Rich Rod was never going to get fired after year 1, no matter what happened, even if they went 0-12. But they're playing hard for him, and clearly like they want him to be around. Yes, if Jaheim and Bray were there, they probably would be better. Yes, they'd have probably another win or 2. It's hard to go apples to apples and exactly say what the record would be because, again, they got blown out in so many games. But Jaheim White was a Doak Walker Award watch list player entering the season. Bray is a veteran receiver, would have helped the offense during a time when they couldn't move the ball for sure. You imagine the record would be better. However, to the Vaughn part, that's not where I'm at 100% in agreement with you, because I asked Rich Rod about this a couple weeks ago. I brought this up about what do you need to do to finally unleash Cam Vaughn, and you saw that touchdown a couple weeks ago, and it looked like an NFL catch, an NFL throw from Scotty Fox 2-dimension, and he put it on a rope. That was a picture-perfect NFL highlight play, but only the one catch in that game for Cam Vaughn. Why not use him more? But then you really dig in, and the targets are there. He's getting 4, 5, 6, 7 targets in some of these games and only coming up with 1, 2, or 3 catches. 3 catches in this game against Arizona State. As Cam Vaughn ended up with 3 for 79 and a couple more targets that didn't go his way in this game. So he's getting looks, he's getting targets. And then Rich Rodriguez also brought up, which I didn't assume he would say, just to protect the player, and also I don't think most of us thought this was an issue because you see him on the sideline, you see him as a burner, deep plays are to him. Yeah, he has double coverage. Why not go to him more and try for pass interference? But Rich Rod said his route running needs to heavily improve. And that's what he said a couple weeks ago, that there are things Cam Vaughn needs to work on. I wrote about it on the site. So the coaching staff may not think, obviously Cam Vaughn's a playmaker. Rich Rod's known him from Jack State days. He's a great player. He wouldn't be there. But the coaching staff may not be singing his praises as much as the fan base. The fan base all year has seen Cam Vaughn's the one diamond in the rough here, even when the offense couldn't move the ball. He's the guy you chuck it to. He's the guy you throw to. He's the guy you try to. Want to even try for pass interference with him. He's the one bright spot, even during that losing skid. But even during the losing skid, Rich Rodriguez was talking about that Cam Vaughn's far from perfect. He's not an elite receiver in his eyes just yet. There are things he can work on to get there. He has that talent and ability, but again, maybe that's part of not fully just giving him the keys to the offense in a way. Scotty Fox just unleash it to Cam Vaughn every now and then. Maybe those plays aren't called because they're not seeing as much as what we're seeing or you're seeing, because I've thought that too. So I'll throw myself in the mix with the fans in terms of the Cam Vaughn thought process here. Just use him more, try for him more, look for PI. He's your playmaker. Rich Rod thinks there's things to work on. So that's part of it too. But I do get that sentiment. Discouraged that we lost very winnable game. This is from Dan, a Mountaineer fan there. Shea Ear on X. Encouraged because at least we compete now. A month ago, we were unwatchable. And yes, 100%. The Mountaineers were completely unwatchable. This team was completely unwatchable. That would be the phrase. They were unwatchable. They were unwatchable. It was, I had to watch it covering the team. I had to watch every one of them, but it was unwatchable ball. It was bad ball. It was horrible ball. It was an eyesore. They couldn't do anything on offense, even going from really Ohio on, with the exception of the Pitt game. And that game was a comeback effort. And, you know, Pitt was a different team then. They've since got exposed kind of, but they were better after that because that was such a bad effort. And Eli Holstein kind of squandered that game for sure. And that led to the end of his time as the Panthers quarterback. But aside from that victory, you go to the Big 12 losing skid and even the Ohio game right before. Obviously, you lose to a group of five. It's an average group of five, despite being great last year, average this year. All those turnovers from the defense, they couldn't do anything on offense. And then the offense did nothing during the Big 12 losing streak for the most part, aside from flashes here or there at BYU and other games. And then TCU, of course, played a little better, maybe should have won. TCU played poorly. And then you get into the win streak, and then this game. The offense has been night and day. This team has been night and day. The defense is picking it up a little bit from that losing skid where they were so bad as well. I think they were worse in this game against the Sun Devils than they were against Colorado. You're facing a better team. Maybe that's part of it. But they did hold them down from big plays for the first quarter or so. They knew deep plays were coming. That's still a weakness of this team secondary-wise. It's the same thing as under Neil Brown. The West Virginia secondary is a problem for deep passes. But the defense was able to force a turnover, help keep them in the game at times. Collectively, this team had a chance to win this game and played competitive with a good team. That was not happening weeks ago, for sure. Unwatchable, now to competitive ball. And then next year, you got to get from unwatchable to competitive to good. You got to then be good. And this team hasn't really been good yet this year. Maybe at Houston was good. That's the one complete game. But they went from unwatchable to now competitive. Let's see next year if they can get to good, depending on how this ends against Texas Tech. We do now have some comments here in the chat. The announcer said post-game there's a fight in Morgantown. 100%, Carrie. I mean, I think this team is showing fight and showing heart, and we'll see how they show up against Texas Tech. Very reminiscent of last year's team facing the Red Raiders when that season was going to a bowl, but not nearly what it was supposed to be. And they got destroyed, granted, in Lubbock, and that ended Neil Brown's tenure. He didn't even coach the bowl game. He was fired earlier than that. They end the season with the Red Raiders again. This is even a better Texas Tech team than last year because this Red Raiders team thinks they can win the Big 12 and be in the CFP, and they spent a hell of a lot of money to maybe have the best team in program history or certainly of this century. But they also squander it a lot down the stretch. We'll see if maybe they collapse against the competitive Mountaineer team. But this team, again, is showing that they care, showing they have fight, showing they want to do this for themselves, for the future of the program, and for the coaching staff. Reed Carrico, Jeff Weimer, guys with eligibility running out, they all said it this week going into ASU that they want to play well. They want to have a season that ends on a high note, regardless of the disappointment overall, to have this team carry this into the future. And even if they're not there, they're going to take that and say, we're part of this team when it turns around and becomes a winner again. And that's what it looks like. It looks like they're actually believing that. They actually do believe in that. They mean what they say, and they're playing hard. They're just not as good talent-wise as some of these other teams, certainly ASU, certainly Texas Tech, really even Houston, who they did beat. Colorado, you could argue they're more talented than. TCU is probably more talented than them, and they did beat them, but that was a close game, and TCU had a bad day, but West Virginia didn't win, and they probably feel like they should have won. So there are games West Virginia's going to sit there, Rich Rod's going to sit there knowing there's no bowl game and say they should have won them. They should be in a bowl game, even with all the injuries. They don't get there. They don't get another bowl game for the ledger and add it to the facility wall and how many for the program in its history, which is a good top 20 all-time number, by the way, more than many would think. But with all that said, when you have so many injuries this year, it is year one of a program with 80 freaking transfers and so much instability in the offseason. I don't know really where this season was going to go anyway. People thinking 10 wins right away from the jump, that was nuts. Next year, there's lots of pressure, though, because now you have a full year to recruit, a full year to recover from this. You shouldn't be as hurt as you were this year. The excuses won't be as sound as they were this year and as they are this year, despite Rich Rod hyping them up so much, saying they're going to win right away. That was probably never realistic in the first place. When your punter's leg cramps on kicking the ball, it may not be your day. And yeah, I'm guessing that's from the heat. I haven't heard anything of Oliver Straw out seriously or anything like that. He's a great punter, an elite punter, dare I say. His leg's been used a lot this year. It's rough to do it in the heat like that in the desert. And yeah, it was kind of synonymous that it's just not your day, even though after that, they put up an effort and put up a fight and almost came back and won. I don't mind being uber aggressive when we have a line that can run block. Well, that's fair, Eric. The line has played better in recent weeks, though. The offensive line has been improved in recent weeks, which part of the win streak and part of this team being better these last 4 games, if you include that in a quarter and go TCU, Houston, Colorado, and Arizona State, if that's like your quarter of this team being respectable, part of why the team played better, offensive line has been way better. Obviously, improved quarterback play as Fox is trying to feel it now and feeling it and getting developed, even though he hasn't been perfect at all. He's been the best they've had all year since, I guess, the brawl win with Nika Markiel. And they're getting production on the ground, etc. But all of that goes from the offensive line being better. You could argue today that was left to be desired, and the offensive line was worse today than they have been in recent weeks. I mean, Sincere Bowers had 42 yards on the ground on 13 carries. Curtis Jones had 12 and the touchdown. He now has 3 TDs in his 2 games as a running back. West Virginia had 421 total yards to only 330 for Arizona State, but only 68 yards on the ground to 123 for the Sun Devils. So, yeah, the run game, which when Rich Rod wins big, when his offense clicks, the run game's clicking. That's what we saw against Colorado. That's what we saw against Houston. Didn't happen here, despite overall total yards being there. Rich Rod got to have the run game moving, and yards per rush at only 1.7. They totaled 68 because they try so damn much, but 1.7 to 3.2. Neither team ran that well, but West Virginia got destroyed on the ground, and the O-line did not perform. So, yes, this game kind of back to where it was weeks ago, but the O-line has been better in recent weeks, which is how they were able to win those 2 games in a row. This portal coming up fast, so we need to get a bunch of big nasties for that line. And, Jerry, that goes back to the O-line. WVU gloves. I have no reason to believe he's not going to flip to West Virginia until it happens. You can't book it. You can't sign it on the dotted line for yourself, but that would be a big addition. They've done well in recruiting recently, if you're paying attention. We have it on the site. There are others who cover it maybe even more extensively than us. They've done well recently in recruiting, and it has been on the offensive line a little bit, and Kevin Brown would be a major feather in your cap. So they know that. They have to recruit on the O-line. That's a big focus for sure, but has to be better. The offensive line has to be better next year, or this team won't be better. The record will be similar, even if it's a little better. It won't be where you want it to be, because I'm sure many of the fans, 4 wins with injuries, maybe it should have been 5 with Jaheim there. You're looking for kind of wanting 7 at minimum, certainly a secure bowl game next year to really show you're going in the right direction. 8, as a hope. Any more might be a little ridiculous, but you got to certainly turn this around from this year. Rich Rod was pissed in his post-game presser. Never seen him that mad, before, Scott. Well, and I'm going to wrap up this post-game show here because I feel like that's going to lead me to have to cover a lot here on the site in terms of written content. So go over to the game recap already and the social media reaction that's already on the site. More will be coming. and then I will dive further into watching that post-game presser as I'm covering from home. I'm not there. I miss out on hearing Rich Rod today. But what I will tell you is you have never seen him that mad before. I have this year, and I can't even tell you all of it because some of it was sitting on the other side of a really thin wall at UCF. And, I don't think he knew the media was there, but visiting coaches right near where the visiting media would have their post-game pressers. He came out and was calm and cool. What you saw was calm and cool. Yeah, they lost by 30 after the second half collapse. I heard a different story. I heard him angry, to say the least, at everybody before coming to us. I heard from others that at BYU was the same story. So Rich Rod has let it loose many times this year. He has certainly let his emotions get the best of him. And we've seen angry Rich Rod, us in media. We have seen angry Rich Rod this year. And this is another game that he feels like he probably should have won, even though they let it slip away. I know that Scotty Fox errant pass there at the end with the interception, even pass from earlier, got Rich Rod upset. You could see it on the game broadcast. And, that's kind of where I'll leave this. Scotty Fox got to be a little bit better for this team to get to that next level, even though they need a lot else to also get better. You imagine he would be in year 2. But I don't think there's been enough from Scotty Fox to make Rich Rod believe he's 100% the guy, and he does not need to go in the portal to look for a veteran quarterback to at least compete with him. If you want to be Scotty Fox no matter what, you got to have Texas Tech be even better than this. There's still those mistakes that makes Rich Rod as mad as you're seeing him in his post-game presser. And another one kind of they let slip away. This won't be a bowl year, but they at least play better down the stretch. They show heart. And they were competitive against a good team and have been competitive against better teams. So, in summary, they go from an emotional high of the Pitt win to being unwatchable for a month and a half to now being competitive. We'll see if next year they can get good, because that's obviously where this fan base wants them to be.